Greetings everyone, and welcome to SpaceWeek Live for Sunday, January 31st, 2021. So, we had not too many launches last week, but some big news regarding SpaceX. Let's see what happened. And I apologize ahead of time. I was rushing to get this Space Week ready because I'm sleep deprived. So, all right, looking back at the last week. On Wednesday, we had the first spacewalk of the year, which is, let's see here, first spacewalk of the year, which is leading up to a series of, I think, 3 or 4 spacewalks. This time it was astronauts Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover installing some upgrades on the European Space Agency's Columbus module, which is the ESA's largest single contribution to the ISS. Future spacewalks will, let's see here, the schedule, spacewalk, station upgrades, IROSA prep. Okay, so we'll get to those later. But, yep, the spacewalk was successful, lasted about 6.5 hours, per usual. Then on Thursday, China launched a Long March 4C with 3 Yaogan 3102 reconnaissance satellites, those are spy satellites, into sort of a high low Earth orbit. And that was actually the only launch last week, at least since the last Space Week episode. There was the SpaceX Transporter 1 mission last Sunday, but that was in the morning. Let's check out the Chinese launch. So you see those pieces falling off, those white squares falling off the rocket. Those are not. That's well, some of it may be ice, but those are insulation tiles that are. Let me get the animation. Those are insulation tiles on the fairing that are intended to insulate the payload from, I guess, the ambient weather temperature outside, and they're designed to fall off during launch. They're, yeah. So that's, it looks like huge chunks of ice, but it's actually not ice. Then, let's see. Ah, yes. ULA's Tori Bruno posted a cool video showing the rollout of the Vulcan launch platform. This is a newly designed strongback, basically, that will hold the up-and-coming Vulcan rocket, getting rolled out to Slick 41 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And yes, it is called Space Force Station now. So, exciting news for ULA. It's not every day they get to roll out a new rocket platform. Thanks to Tori Bruno for that. Then NASA announced that the second Crew Dragon mission, aptly named Crew 2, will launch. If you just a reminder, Crew Dragon is SpaceX's manned spacecraft. Crew 1 launched a couple months ago, a few months ago actually, and Crew 2 will be launching on April 20th. And then the 4 Crew 1 astronauts are scheduled to return this March. So in March, Crew 1 comes back. In April, Crew 2 launches. Then, let's see. The other big news from last week is that SpaceX's Starship SN9 high-altitude prototype test vehicle did not launch. Why did it not launch? Because Elon and the Federal Aviation Administration are having a bit of a complicated relationship right now. The details are not entirely clear, but per this article from The Verge, which some people have taken issue with the way that some of the information was presented in this article, but nonetheless, per this article, the FAA determined, or the FAA, I guess, alleged that SpaceX violated its launch license in the SN8 launch a few weeks ago. So let's see here. If we look, violated the terms of its Federal Aviation Administration test license. So supposedly the explosive landing was actually a violation, which, being a test flight, I'm not sure how that works, but yeah. So the details are unclear. Basically, the description of the violation is kind of vague at this point. I imagine it's probably the FAA's policy to not discuss ongoing investigations, which is normal for any organization. And so the violations, I suppose, would be referred to as alleged until the investigation is concluded, at which point a determination would be made as to whether the violations were in fact violations. Or maybe the violations are determined already, and they're simply doing an investigation to determine what SpaceX did wrong and how they should be punished or fined or whatever. So those of us who are fans of SpaceX and fans of space are obviously frustrated by this situation, because more regulation means more delays, more regulation means more cost, and slipping time schedules, but and more angry tweets from Elon. Oh yes, I need to I need to give a shout out to Lab Padre for, where is this? Hold on a moment. It's around here somewhere. Seems to have disappeared. Oh yeah, I put it in this other folder. Hold on a second. Messing myself up by moving files. Screenshots, YouTube. Sort by date, please. Here we go. So this was on the 28th, I think it was. We were waiting for SN9's expected launch, which got canceled because of the FAA situation. But they put Elon venting there on the live status for SN9 because, well, yeah, he was tweeting, as he is wont to do. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with the FAA situation. You know, none of us have the insider info, and it's counterproductive, or at least unproductive, to bash on the FAA. Ultimately they're just trying to do their job to keep airspace safe. If someone's being overzealous, then hopefully that person will be hopefully they'll be able to determine that and then take whatever action is needed to ensure that such overzealousness doesn't happen again. And if they are well within their rights to have expressed these concerns, then hopefully we'll all be safer for it, because even though we're all rooting for space, you know, we do need to dot our I's and cross our T's to ensure that you know, both air and space are as safe as reasonably possible. So, looking ahead to the next week, I'm going to have to kind of wing this. Let's see here. Oh, and I do apologize about BenuCam. I worked so hard to get the camera set up and ready. Here, let me switch back. So, let's see. Boop. So the camera's there. It's live. But Benu is being difficult today. He tends to not be in his bed when I'm doing Space Week, and I don't know why. I don't know if my voice irritates him or what. I mean, he doesn't seem to mind the explosions and loud music and stuff that I, you know, from gaming and playing music. But yeah, during my Space Week, he's very seldom in his bed. So I'll do what I can. Maybe I'll record video of him in his bed and then just play it back during Space Week, so you can pretend that it's a live BenuCam. But I do have the camera set up, and I even I sprayed it with catnip, and I gave him a little feather toy, and I even put some little treats in his bed. But he's just being a cat, so whatever. Instead, you can have a picture. So, back to the schedule. This week, we are looking at tomorrow morning on Monday, February 1st, starting at 5:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 GMT. We have the second spacewalk of the year. This will be consist of station upgrades. I don't know exactly which ones, but that'll last. So usually they take about 90 minutes of 60 to 90 minutes of prep time during their coverage, which I will also have here on Raw Space for you as a live stream. Usually they take about 60 or 90 minutes from the time the coverage begins to the time the spacewalk officially begins, which is when they start. It's basically when they disconnect from the station oxygen and begin breathing oxygen from within their EVMUs, their extravehicular mobility unit spacesuits. And then from there on, it usually lasts for about 6.5 hours until they re-enter the airlock, and then the broadcast would end once they are inside and take off their suits. So then on Tuesday, February 2nd, at 6:20 a.m. Eastern, 11:20 a.m. GMT, we're scheduled to launch, or rather SpaceX is scheduled to launch another Falcon 9 with the Starlink 17 mission. This is actually the 19th batch of Starlink satellites. The 18th was actually 10 Starlinks that flew on the Transporter 1 mission. So we're officially now, the Starlink mission numbers are now actually 2 numbers behind the overall number of Starlink launch missions. So it used to be 1, now it's 2. So we're going to have to do math. Also on February the 2nd, at an unspecified time, and which there will not be a live stream for, a Russian Soyuz will be launching the Lotos S1 satellite. Then on Thursday, February 4th, at 1:19 a.m. my time, Eastern, 6:19 a.m. GMT, there will be yet another Starlink launch, Starlink 18. Then on Friday, February 5th, is a Chinese Long March 3B with the Tianhui 3 spy satellite. And that is at an unspecified time. And then on Saturday the 6th, we have the long-anticipated 3rd anniversary of, drumroll please, Starman. The first launch of SpaceX's Falcon Heavy with Starman in Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster happened at, 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time, something like that, on February 6th, 2018. And as of this Saturday, that will have been 3 Earth years ago. Less than 3 Starman years, though. And since shortly after that time, I have been streaming Starman 24/7 on a loop, cleaned up replay loop with music and chat, as we say, on this channel. So that's led to the development of a lively little space community of like-minded friends, for which I'm eternally grateful to y'all. So, yay Starman, and he will never know that we continue to watch him because he is a mannequin. That's actually it for the coming week. I hear the cat whacking at his food dish in the kitchen. I think my daughter gave him some tuna, which was a big distraction because he totally can't resist tuna. So, questions. Where's my... Oh, hello. Hey, Benu. Hey, buddy. You want to come up in your bed? Come here. No, you smell a new box. It smells like rain. Okay, fine. Well, I'm not going to try to cajole the cat into getting into his bed. He'll do what he does. You cannot place a cat. There it is. Boop. Live Q&A. Questions. So, please direct your questions in the chat to me. Tag my name, rawspace, so that we're sure to see them, and we'll see if we have any pending questions. The last couple of weeks we've had very few questions. Let's see if that has changed. Alright, looks like we have a few more today. Here, you know what? I will take off the... There you go. In case he jumps up in his bed while I'm talking. Benio, hey. Let me see if I can get him over here. Benio. Come on. Come at me. He's wiggling. There he is. You know what? Screw you. All right. Cats are impossible. Okay, so Mark Desire. Oh yeah, Mark Desire. Is that Grumpy Cat? Yeah. Look at this. Look at this brilliance. Um, that's my motto. Nope. Actually, my motto is meh, but nope is a close second. This is a stylized version of the Grumpy Cat meme that my mom actually made this T-shirt. It's kind of falling apart now. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah. So my mom dabbles in lots of arts and crafty things, and she made that T-shirt for me for my birthday a few years ago. I love it. Okay, mildly spicy. If we terraform this, here we go. Space questions. If we terraform Mars, could we successfully introduce dolphins into Martian waters? It's an interesting question, sort of a long-term question, because in order to terraform Mars to the point where it had a breathable atmosphere would take sort of next level, like we're talking way in the future. But if Mars had a breathable atmosphere, because after all, dolphins are mammals. They don't filter oxygen out of the water. They breathe oxygen from the air. Then I imagine dolphins could adapt to the different gravity on Mars. They would probably jump really high out of the water. But yeah, that would be something to see extra splashy water with super turbo dolphins. But yes, I think we could successfully introduce dolphins into Martian waters if the atmosphere was oxygenated, which that's a big if. But Tig Rayhoff, did you see the launch of the Space Haggis? I saw a reference to Space Haggis, but I did not see the launch. No, was it on a suborbital rocket? I don't know. I saw someone posted about Space Haggis, and I was like, I don't remember there being a Haggis launch. You know what? Let me look it up real quick. Space Haggis. Haggis in space. What in the world? So apparently we have Haggis in space. Okay. The Scotsman. How did Scottish butcher Simon Howie launch Haggis into space? So, what did it launch on? That's my question. 20 miles. Okay. Weather balloon. Okay. There you go. Weather balloon. That's the answer. Well done, Scotsman. Mark Desire, how soon will the U.S. Space Force be a force to be taken seriously? Now, I mean, if in another time, another epoch of this nation of ours, of mine, maybe not all of y'all's, the name Space Force might be taken more seriously, but I mean, the U.S. Army Air Corps became the U.S. Air Force, and now the U.S. Space Command, which was a division of the Air Force, has become the U.S. Space Force. So it's, you know, I mean, we don't have Starship Troopers floating around firing laser weapons, but nonetheless, we do have lots of military operations in space. Satellites, you know, reconnaissance, whatever. And, you know, missile defense, whatever. So, yeah. I mean, I think that if people stop associating it with a particular president, or if they... I mean, it's really sort of a logical progression of the military services, because as we attained air flight, eventually we had an Air Force, you know, and as we expand our presence in space, then we have a Space Force. So, it can be taken seriously if you don't laugh at it, sort of. And it's a fact. I mean, it exists and it's there. So, you know, you can't really undo it that easily. So it's here to stay, and we'll just have to call it Space Force henceforth. Is there a heater in the cat bed? No, there is not. It's a good idea, though. Cats do love warmth. That's why they like to lay in the sun. Do I think SpaceX will ever do a Falcon launch the same day as a Starship test, as they are sometimes scheduled together? So there have been cases of more than one Falcon 9 launch being scheduled for the same day, but in each of those cases, there's been at least one time when that's been the case. But oh, yeah, it's scrubbed. One of them scrubbed. I think both of them scrubbed. But yeah, because of scrubs, we haven't yet seen a dual or a tandem SpaceX launch in the same day. They have had 2 scrubs in one day for the same launch, which is something. It was like just after midnight and then just before midnight at the end of the day. But, you know, the day will come. And in the future, I think we can expect to see potentially multiple launches per day if this Starship thing succeeds, because it'll be rapidly reusable. Let's see. Dale Duncan, moderator extraordinaire, alongside with Mark Desire and others. Maybe try some Fellaway Classic on the Bennu bed. Now, I did spray, check this out, I did spray some Dude, This Stuff Is Awesome. Oh, it's kind of translucent. Anyway, I did spray some Dude, This Stuff Is Awesome catnip spray on the bed, but he doesn't care. Cats are totally, like, they're the most independent creatures on Earth. They'll do whatever the heck they want, and that is usually not what you want them to do. Here, let me give you static Bennu again. So, next question. Move this over so I'm not looking off to the side awkwardly. Rockin' Robbins 13. Why is the space community... Ever the diplomat. Rockin' Robbins 13. Why is the space community acting like a bunch of flat earthers making up weird conspiracy theories about the FAA? So I've had lots of discussions with people, friends, and randos on the internet, etc., about why humans are so prone to fantasy. You think of conspiracy theories, superstitions, religions, if you want to lump those into the same category. And my theory is that, like, for example, why are we superstitious? Why do we knock wood or think that the number 13 is unlucky, or, you know, Bloody Mary in the mirror or whatever? Why are we superstitious? Why do we believe in ghosts, you know, aliens, you know, playing hide and seek with us or whatever? And my theory is that humans are weak. I mean, are like a poodle, a little poodle can outrun you by a factor of 2 or 3. Even a paraplegic poodle could probably outrun you. Humans are slow. I mean, we're squishy. We don't have fur to protect us from the elements. We don't have super strength to beat up on our natural enemies. We don't have great sight. You know, we can't see well, especially at night. We're not very well suited for survival, except that we have these great big brains that allow us to modify our environment to suit ourselves. So these great big brains of ours allow us to do things like extrapolate and imagine potential threats so that we can anticipate them. You know, is that rustling in the trees the wind, or is it a tiger that wants to eat us? And so, I believe, my opinion, as a consequence of this brain that is wired to imagine possibilities, we have evolved in such a way that we have a natural predisposition to basically to make stuff up, you know? So we see shapes in the clouds. It looks like a turtle. It looks like a dragon. It looks like a UFO. So, oh my gosh, I saw a UFO. I think that the superstition of the human species is an evolutionary trait that helped us to survive by imagining all the things that could do us harm. And I think that that's why humans tend toward conspiracy theories, even otherwise rational, scientifically minded space enthusiasts, you know. And I don't think any of us are immune to it. And so, you know, I don't exactly give us a pass on choosing to go down that rabbit hole of conspiracy, but I think that it comes naturally to our species to believe in things we can't see. And, you know, however, if you're presented with evidence to the otherwise, such as, you know, the flat earthers and the science deniers and the moon hoaxers, etc., if you're presented with evidence to the contrary and you still choose to believe in the made-up fairy tale, then you're just you have some issues going on upstairs. But great question, and it allowed me to delve a little bit into my theory of human evolution there. But so thank you, Rockin' Robbins 13. Mark Desire, how many different caps have you worn so far? I have worn precisely one cap. I'm not a big hat wearer. I mean, I have this dorky looking visor that I wear in the summertime just to keep the sun out of my eyes. But, you know, I'm whatever. I'm a dad. I don't care if I look dorky. I just need the sun out of my eyes because my Norwegian skin and eyes do not appreciate the sun, despite me living in North Carolina, which is quite sunny and hot in the summer. However, I do have on my list of things to do an embroidery pattern for a raw space hat, which I want to get put in the merch store, but I've got to come up with that design because it has to comply with very specific requirements for embroidery compatibility. Evan McGregor channel says this Space Week comes just 30 minutes before Apollo 14's launch 50 years ago. That is a great observation, and thank you for that. I should have put that on the calendar. In fact, I should put all the Apollo launches on my calendar recurring each year so that I can be sure to remember them. That's awesome, though. Thank you for reminding us. I do plan to... So this channel started as a place to put old Apollo videos, and I haven't uploaded any Apollo videos in a long time, but I do intend to do so. I want compilations of moonwalks and rover drivings and other Apollo-related, maybe Apollo launches or something. But I do plan to do that. It's on my list, so I'll get to it within the next 10 years, I promise. MVM Motovlog Music. What is the rotating graphic over my right shoulder? That is a little yin-yang planets. So if you're familiar with my Oops. I forgot the emoji. The custom emoji shortcuts are broken. Boop. So if you're familiar with my sort of signature logo, the yin-yang planets of Earth and Mars, that's an image that I created like 20 years ago now, and it's kind of been my thing ever since. And so once upon a time I made an animated version of it, and that is it. As a matter of fact, I could even, let's see here, I think I have it in my sprites folder. I can show you a big version. Where is it? Yin Yang Planets. Version 4. No. Apollo 11. Animated. 64 by 64. Oop, that's PNG. Where's the GIF? There it is. So it's kind of fuzzy, but because it's only 64 pixels blown up, but yeah. This is actually one of my old ones. I may have a newer one, I don't know. But I thought it was cool because the picture of Earth and Mars actually don't move. It's just the transparency that rotates the shape. Anyway, that's my rotating yin-yang planets. So I just superimposed that over my spaceship console there in the background. Because why not? You may also notice if I get out of the frame here, you may notice there's my YouTube page in the background. There's also my picture of an eclipse and my picture of SpaceWeek with my silhouette against the sunset on the little screens in the background. So I have fun with it. Let me have my fun. Let's see. Good questions. More questions. Roger C. Starlink sun sequence orbit, not a decaying orbit. Okay, so he's asking if the orbit of Starlink orbit, sun synchronous orbit. So okay, so the last batch of Starlinks, the 10 Starlinks that launched on the Transporter 1 mission, were in a sun synchronous polar orbit, which is different than most of the other Starlink launches, which have been in a more equatorial inclined orbit. And no, it's not. I mean, well, all orbits in low Earth, in the region of low Earth orbit, within a few hundreds of miles of the surface of the Earth, are subject to orbital decay, because within a few hundred miles of the Earth, there are still stray atoms of atmosphere, oxygen molecules or whatever that are floating around up there. It's a vacuum, it's hard vacuum, but it's not quite as hard as it is further out. So, the ISS has to boost its orbit periodically because it's very large. It's the biggest thing we have up there by far. And so it experiences the most atmospheric drag of any orbiting object. And so, yes, all orbits, particularly in low Earth orbit, are subject to orbital decay. And even farther out orbits aren't going to orbit forever. There's still, things like tidal forces and the influence of Jupiter and whatever, stray molecules that will eventually cause all orbits to decay, but much longer time frames. So, Peter S., why are people so delusional as to simply ignore the radiation in space? Is it delusion, or is it simply being unaware or ignorant? But ignorant has negative connotations that aren't necessarily ideal. We like to fantasize about space, but Yeah, there's no question. Space is a dangerous place. There's a lot of radiation from the sun, from the cosmos, cosmic rays, um, and that has to be mitigated. It has to be dealt with, which, for especially going to Mars. I mean, moon missions, they last, hours or days, um, but going to Mars, you can't just go to Mars for hours or days. It takes you anywhere between 6 and 9 months to get there, and because of the orbital relationship between the Earth and Mars, there's only an ideal alignment for at least going uphill to Mars every 2 years. I'm not actually sure about coming back downhill, but like coming from Mars to Earth, what the I don't think we've never had any spacecraft go from Mars to Earth. Um, we've had lots of spacecraft go to Mars. We've never had any come back. We've had some come back from other objects like the Ryugu Japanese probe, but never from another planet. So, yeah, radiation's a big deal. Mars has a very thin atmosphere, consisting almost entirely of carbon dioxide. Atmosphere is only about, 4% of the density of our atmosphere. It has no planetary magnetosphere, shielding the planet from ionizing radiation like our magnetosphere does here on Earth. And that's a big problem. So, planetary solutions might include some sort of magnetosphere generating device on the like at the Mars Sun L1 Lagrange point, perhaps, or otherwise we're just going to have to build underground, or construct habitats out of materials that can resist the radiation, because otherwise future humans on Mars will be subject to increased rates of cancer from cells being damaged and corrupted by solar and cosmic radiation. It's a very important issue that we have to resolve. Dark Sky, Raw Space, what do you think of catching useful asteroid from the asteroid belt? For example, rich in methane for fuel, or simply gold for the Starbucks. I mean, you do need gold to buy anything from Starbucks, because their coffee is very much overpriced. But and bringing them to the moon for utilization. So long before I got involved in YouTube and all this, I was deeply fascinated by the concept of hauling an asteroid back to Earth, specifically so that we could hollow it out and use it as not only as a space station, but also as an anchor for a space elevator. I don't know in reality if that's very practical, but it's still cool to think about, especially since as far as its questionable practicality, since we know now that many asteroids are simply jumbles of boulders. They're not solid objects. There are still solid chunks of stuff out there, but like Bennu, for which my cat is named, is just a jumble of boulders that are gravitationally sort of loosely bound together. I think that the idea of mining asteroids or using asteroids for benefit, either for resources or profit, is potentially a great idea in the sort of distant future. But you got to remember, asteroids are massive. You're talking about, basically a mountain at least. Basically, imagine moving Mount Everest, in space. That takes either an incredibly long time or an incredible amount of thrust. we don't have the technology to do that. I mean, whether it's mass drivers or whatever. And you also have to be concerned with the safety, because if we start moving asteroids around, then those are potential, catastrophes waiting to happen. I mean, what if something goes wrong? What if the orbit puts it into an intersect path with the Earth, and we wipe out, Europe or something? Not good. I mean, you've seen The Expanse, right? So, yeah. Hard questions, but that's one that that's a can I think we can kick down the road, because it's going to be a while before we have the technology to start tugging asteroids around. MVM Motovlog Music, your green screen pixelation over my right shoulder looks like the thrust that propels my spaceship. Yeah, I really dislike my green screen. I mean, it's useful for like this spaceship thing, and I like to occupy as little space as possible down in the corner when I'm in like this. I don't like there to be a whole like block of stuff down in the corner, just my head basically. However, so it does have uses, but it looks pretty shoddy. It doesn't look professional. I would prefer to present a cleaner, professional look, but yeah, this is what we get for now. I've discussed, even though I'm a photographer with years of experience, most of my experience is in outdoor photography. I've done studio photography, and lighting is hard. And my studio photography experience is with strobes, not hot lights, as they call them, lights that are always on, like a movie studio or a TV studio. So getting proper lighting on a green screen is actually not easy at all. And so, yeah, it does okay, which I'm sorry it doesn't look a little slicker, but my means are limited. I can't afford to pour too many thousands of dollars into a production value here. And I don't think that's why you're here either. I think you're here for the content. So, let's see. Mark Desire, why does this SN8 and SN9 business take so long? So the development timeline of Starship is actually quite accelerated. I mean, they've accomplished a great deal in the past, I guess, three-ish years since they announced, made their big BFR announcement or whatever. Excuse me. And now they've got a vehicle that can perform a high altitude test flight, do a belly flop, descend in a very controlled fashion, and then pitch over at the last minute and almost land successfully. And quite possibly SN9 will land successfully. That's incredible. I mean, SLS is a project, the Space Launch System is a project that's been going on for how many years now? Using old space shuttle parts, albeit good ones, but still old technologies and literally old parts like engines that have actually flown to space on space shuttles, and they're, still haven't done a test flight. And they weren't even able to complete their test static fire the other day, a couple weeks ago, because one of the engines had an issue. So, I think they've come very far with Starship, and so I know we like to be impatient about things. We want stuff to happen now, but they're doing what they can. And so we have a situation now with the FAA where the regulations, the law is the law, and it has to be enforced. The problem is, because when you don't enforce the law, that's how you have situations where which are unsafe and uncontrolled. And so even SpaceX is subject to the law and to the regulations. The problem is the regulations were not drafted for situations such as this. The regulations were designed for the legacy, Boeings and Lockheeds and Aerojet Rocketdynes of the world, not SpaceX, which does this rapid iteration, test to failure sort of model. And so, there are lots of regulations in not just the space sector, but all across the regulatory space that are antiquated or ill-equipped to deal with modern problems and modern situations. And the internet. I mean, there's so many regulations which are not well suited to deal with the information age. And they've had how long now? 27 years since the World Wide Web became a thing to deal with, to work on this stuff. So, unfortunately, outdated regulations are sort of a reality we have to deal with. Hopefully with a change of the guard in Washington, hopefully we can get some momentum on updating some regulations so it's more appropriate to the time we live in, because otherwise we're just, shooting ourselves in the foot. All right, Evan McGregor channel. I saw one meme with a Boeing 737 MAX logo stamped on a starship reading, SpaceX adopting an unorthodox method to gain approval. I'll have to take some time to process that one. Evan McGregor's theory is that people like to do this to gain advantages over other people to make themselves intellectually superior, to solve their own problems and world problems. I presume you're talking about the tendency of people to subscribe to conspiracy theories and superstition, which I lump into the same category. Mark Desire, I saw a meme about Grumpy Cat. Darth Vader brought him aboard the Death Star. The Emperor didn't want that, but then he saw Grumpy had the right expression on its face. I love Grumpy Cat. May he rest in peace. Tig Hoff, do I think there might be too many satellites time? Oh, might be a too many satellites time coming. There does seem to be traffic building up there. I mean, think of how many cars are in the world. Millions and millions and millions of cars in the world. Is that a problem? Well, I mean, it depends on where you live. But now consider space. Space has even more surface area than the Earth because it is bigger than Earth. And it has volume, whereas Earth is essentially a two-dimensional, we don't have cars at different altitudes, let's put it that way. Any flat earthers, I don't want to set them off, but there's an enormous amount of space in space. The thing is, stuff up there moves really fast, especially relative to each other. So, the ISS orbits at 17,500 miles per hour, but an object orbiting in a different orbit might be traveling up to 35,000 miles per hour relative to the ISS, because their orbits could be opposed to each other or whatever. That's a fantastic amount of potential energy that any object, even a BB, I have a scratch, in space
you talk all the time,
Oh boy. Having a little problem here. I did not just breathe helium. I'm having a coughing fit. So, I'll try to push through, as ridiculous as I sound. You're making me cry, man. So, the question from Tig Rayhoff is, do we have too many satellites? Or is there a time coming when there might be too many satellites up there? Which leads us to concerns about the about the Kessler syndrome, where if there's some sort of collision up there, that it could lead to a cascade, of collisions that would basically litter our space with our orbital space with debris. And in some respects, that is a possibility because, for example, if two satellites were to collide, they would utterly obliterate each other. They would create a cloud of debris that would spread for, all of it would eventually spread all across. I mean, just like Saturn has its rings, you would basically have a ring of debris, caused by these destroyed satellites. But it's a problem that we simply have to address. So, number one, we have to deorbit satellites at the end of their lifetime, or put them in graveyard orbits where they're not going to interfere with other active satellites. Number two, we need mechanisms to clean up space debris. And, there are various attempts being made to address this challenge as there become, more and more objects up there. But I don't think we're going to reach a sort of WALL-E scenario where you have literally a cloud of satellites that are enveloping the Earth. That's not realistic. That would take, billions of satellites to do that. But it's an increasing I won't say problem. It's an increasing consideration that has to be taken into account. But we definitely do need measures, just like we clean our roads, we clean our water, we clean our whatever. We need mechanisms to clean up the messes we make, including space, and that's very important. It's tough to do because the objects up there are orbiting every which way at thousands of miles per hour, so it's a challenge. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry about the coughing thing. That was unpleasant. Mark Desire has red hair and freckles. He knows what I mean about the sun sensitivity. I mean, go Scandinavia, right? Does Holland count? Does the Netherlands count as Scandinavia? I don't even know. Or is that just Norway, Finland, Sweden? Football Ian, do you see the... Oh, I read that. I read that wrong, and I was going to have to censor the comment. I apologize. Did you see that Blue Shift Aerospace just launched their first rocket? I did see that, and that's very cool. I don't have the video queued up, but yes, I did read that Blue Shift Aerospace launched a rocket up to a moderate altitude, but they're working on their systems, so that's great. The more the merrier. Scott Murto, I haven't seen your name on a comment in a while. Good to see you. Can/wood. You relate your most interesting moment during your time in the military. Interesting, and thank you for your service. Well, thank you for thanking me. Most interesting moment. So I served in the Air Force back in the 90s, and so this was pre-9/11. It was a different world back then. The main concern at the time were enforcing the no-fly, no-drive zones in Iraq, and The Bosnia region was in conflict at the time. And the most interesting moment during my time in the military, well, I'd say the most significant activity during my time in the military for me personally was my 6-month temporary duty to the UK, where I was stationed over there, and it was amazing. It was the first time I'd been outside the United States, and I got to travel all around the UK, England, Scotland, went over to Ireland, not Northern Ireland, but Ireland, to Dublin for a weekend. Took a hop over to Germany, visited Munich and Lake Chiemsee, and it was incredible. It was an incredible experience because, being from America, we're used to pretty much everything being not old. Even old stuff here is like 100 years old or whatever. But over there, you walk around a corner and boom, there's like 1,000-year-old church, or, well, usually the old stuff is churches, or like Stonehenge. I visited Stonehenge. I touched Stonehenge just once with a finger. I didn't like put my paws all over it. Back when you could do that, I guess they have it fenced off now. But as far as military related activity, one noteworthy moment was when, because I was working in the UK at basically what amounted to a classified library with target materials like maps, charts, aerial images of potential targets in Iraq mainly, and all over the world really, but at the time Iraq was the big concern. And we got the call to assemble a whole bunch of target materials for Iraq, and it was all very hush-hush. Of course, classified military operation at the time. And that very same day on CNN, we see a list of all the targets that I had just pulled materials for, which I thought was crazy. It felt as if I was actually involved in the real world for once. But anyway, moving on. Maria Kutajan, did you schedule the events for February? Many things. I do need to give the calendar some more attention. Lately, I have tended to schedule things on the calendar within, let's say, the same week of it happening. I'll try to do better. The thing is, schedules slip all the time. Like the human launches don't tend to slip very much. The cargo launches to the ISS don't tend to slip very much. But commercial launches and most other launches, they slip all the time. Like the Mars landings, those aren't going to slip. They get one chance. So I can safely put those on the calendar and be sure that whatever happens, it will happen at that time. Let's see, David Tomes. Is there much microdebris in orbit that abrades the surface of orbital objects? There's definitely a lot up there. And that's why the ISS and satellites or whatever, they have micrometeoroid debris shielding. Like, I don't know if they're Kevlar sheets or whatever. But you can see in objects that are brought back from space that have been orbiting, there is micrometeoroid damage to them. But it's small. It's not like there's holes blown in them. But it's a concern. Anything in space, needs to be protected from micrometeoroid damage. And these are like dust grains and things like that, micrometeoroids, not like rocks. I mean, if a chunk of rock were to hit, the ISS at 40,000 miles an hour, it would absolutely punch a hole in it. But and as far as how much is there, I mean, 1 centimeter or less, there are millions of pieces of debris up there. Yes, there's a lot. Um, you know, in fact, here's something interesting. So as far as micro debris, there's a thing that I didn't even know about until the past couple of years. That because I don't live in a dark sky location, and the sky is usually washed out by city lights and humidity. Um, but there's a thing called the zodiacal light, and it is a let me find a picture of it real quick. It's a phenomenon that happens before dawn, like a while before dawn or a while after sunset, where you can actually see, it's like a triangle of white light, very dim, that you can see up in the sky toward the horizon where the sun is either going to rise or set. And what it is actually, and this blew my mind, it is actually, let me open this image. Dust particles in our solar system having sunlight reflected off of them. It's not like an atmospheric phenomenon. The light is actually coming from dust particles in the solar system, which is amazing. Like, these are microscopic grains of dust out there in the cosmos that the sunlight is reflecting off of at such an angle that we can see them. And there's actually more than one zodiacal light. Like, there's actually the brighter one, which is actually very dim, but so dim that you're lucky if you ever see it. There's the brighter one is toward the sun, but there's actually one on the opposite side of Earth, which is backscattered light from the sun. It's really quite incredible. Just sort of, the universe is full of wonders, and we're lucky to be a part of it. I sound so hopeful. I'm such a pessimist sometimes, but as far as the cosmos, it's really amazing and fascinating. Mark Desire, one-way tickets to Mars might solve part of the problem. You can also start colonization right away if you want to. So yes, we could send people there to their deaths, but I think that would be a bit of a PR problem. Just had to look over to see if Bennu had crept into his bed, and he has not. Well, someday he'll join us. So, yeah, one-way tickets to Mars I don't think will be a thing because people won't accept it. The prospective Mars travelers might be willing to take a one-way trip, but there would be too much backlash. It wouldn't be allowed. And Mark Desire, Falcon Heavy got delayed 5 years, so I guess we're getting spoiled by SpaceX. Yeah, I mean, it's important to put things into perspective. SN9 being delayed by a matter of days or even weeks is small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. They're still moving forward. It's just we're having to deal with some regulatory issues at the moment. Dark Sky, have you learned news, or have I heard news from the Dear Moon project lately? I have not. I mean, Dear Moon, if you remember, was Yusaku Maezawa, the Japanese businessman and art collector and space enthusiast, was basically donated a bunch of money to SpaceX and plans to take a Starship trip around the moon with a bunch of artists and influencers. And that trip relies on there being a Starship that they can do that with. So Dear Moon is completely bound to the timeline of Starship development. Until there's a viable Starship, you can't have a Dear Moon mission. Starship and Super Heavy, because Starship itself with a full, 6 Raptor engines might be able to get to orbit, but I don't know that it would be able to get to the moon and back. For that, you would need the extra boost of Super Heavy. Scott Murto, what's your pulse rate like, man? You got us worried about you here. My pulse is all right. I just had a tickle in my throat, a scratch in my throat that I had to deal with. MVM Motovlog Music, thanks for being positive. It's what keeps us going. You know what? I'm so pragmatic in many aspects of my life, and I find it, I know that there are some people and some YouTubers out there that are overly exuberant about things and super excitable and super enthusiastic, and that's just not my personality. But I have excitement about things, but it's more subdued. And but as far as real life, like down here on the ground, my outlook is often pretty grim, but when I look to space, I see hope. And I don't see necessarily hope for me, but I see hope for us as a species. And that's important. It's important to maintain that hope. Unfortunately, in between us and hope are many years of hard work. So we got to keep at it. And, work on greasing the skids with more appropriate regulations and, supporting your local launch providers, etc., etc. David Tomes, thank you so very much for your thorough response. Glad to be of service. All right. Well, I guess that will wrap it up. I thought this was going to be short and sweet because I didn't have many notes prepared beforehand, but we had some great questions, which is excellent. Thank you for those. And we did not have an appearance from Bennu. I'm sorry for that. But I have the Bennu cam set up. It is ready to go. So when Bennu decides to, because he'll sit there for hours while I'm, gaming or whatever, putzing around, and he'll just curl up and make cute, noises or whatever. But maybe this is like the just a bad time in the afternoon for him. He wants to be elsewhere. But anyway, until next time, keep it raw. Make sure to hydrate and keep the throat moist. And thank you all for coming. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning for the spacewalk, and then again next week for Space Week. Bye for now.